I'm a stroke survivor. This is the No. 1 food I eliminated to prevent a second stroke. The morning I woke up unable to speak clearly with my left arm, feeling like it belonged to someone else, I knew something was terribly wrong. What I didn't know was that this moment would forever change not just my life, but my entire understanding of how the foods we consume daily can either protect us or slowly destroy our cardiovascular system. My name is Dr. Sarah Chen, and I am a stroke survivor, a cardiologist, and someone who learned the hard way that knowledge without action means nothing when your life hangs in the balance. At 48 years old, I considered myself the picture of health. I exercised regularly, maintained what I thought was a balanced diet, and prided myself on my medical expertise, yet none of this prevented the blood clot that travelled to my brain on that fateful Tuesday morning in March. The irony was not lost on me that as a cardiologist I had spent years educating patients about stroke prevention while unknowingly consuming the very foods that would eventually contribute to my own cerebrovascular event. The statistics surrounding stroke in America are staggering and demand immediate attention from every individual reading these words. According to the American Heart Association, someone in the United States has a stroke every 40 seconds, and someone dies from stroke every 3.5 minutes. More alarming still is the fact that approximately 87% of all strokes are ischemic strokes caused by blockages that cut off blood flow to the brain, and many of these blockages are directly related to our dietary choices. What most people fail to understand is that stroke is not a single event, but rather the culmination of years, sometimes decades, of cardiovascular damage that occurs silently within our bodies. The foods we eat every day either contribute to the buildup of arterial plaque and inflammation that leads to stroke, or they provide protective nutrients that help maintain healthy blood vessels and optimal blood flow to the brain. The choice is ours, but only if we possess the knowledge to make informed decisions about what we put into our bodies. During my recovery, as I struggled to regain my speech and motor function through intensive rehabilitation, I became obsessed with understanding exactly what had gone wrong in my own body. I pored over medical literature, analysed my own dietary patterns, and consulted with colleagues who specialised in nutritional cardiology. What I discovered was both shocking and empowering. It was shocking because the evidence was so clear, yet so widely ignored, and empowering because it meant I had significant control over my risk of experiencing a second stroke. The number 1 food I eliminated from my diet immediately upon my discharge from the hospital was processed meat, and I cannot emphasize strongly enough how critical this decision has been to my ongoing health and stroke prevention strategy. Processed meats include bacon sausage, hot dogs, deli meats, pepperoni salami, and any meat that has been preserved through smoking, curing, salting, or the addition of chemical preservatives, and the scientific evidence linking these foods to cardiovascular disease and stroke is overwhelming and undeniable. The mechanism by which processed meats increase stroke risk is multifaceted and involves several interconnected pathways that damage our cardiovascular system. First, these products are extremely high in sodium, with a single serving often containing more than half of the recommended daily sodium intake. Excessive sodium consumption leads to hypertension, which is the single most important modifiable risk factor for stroke, and when blood pressure remains elevated over time, it damages the delicate lining of blood vessels throughout the body, including those that supply the brain. Beyond the sodium content, processed meats contain nitrates and nitrites, chemical preservatives that are converted into nitrosamines in the body. These compounds are not only carcinogenic, but also contribute to endothelial dysfunction, which is the impairment of the inner lining of blood vessels that normally helps regulate blood flow and prevent clot formation. When the endothelium is damaged, blood vessels become more prone to inflammation, plaque buildup, and the formation of blood clots that can travel to the brain and cause stroke. The saturated fat content in processed meats is another critical factor that cannot be ignored. These foods are typically very high in saturated fats, which raise LDL cholesterol levels and contribute to the development of atherosclerosis. Atherosclerosis is the buildup of fatty deposits, cholesterol, and other substances in the arteries, and when this occurs in the carotid arteries that supply blood to the brain, it significantly increases the risk of ischemic stroke. Perhaps even more concerning is the presence of advanced glycation end products or AGEs in processed meats. These compounds form when proteins or fats combine with sugars at high temperatures, such as during the smoking or curing process. AGEs promote inflammation throughout the body and contribute to oxidative stress, both of which are key factors in the development of cardiovascular disease and stroke. The inflammatory response triggered by regular consumption of processed meats is particularly dangerous for stroke prevention. Chronic inflammation in the body leads to the production of inflammatory markers such as C-reactive protein interleukin-6 and tumor necrosis factor alpha. These markers indicate ongoing inflammation in blood vessels and are strongly associated with increased risk of cardiovascular events, including stroke. During my own recovery, I had extensive blood work done that revealed elevated levels of several inflammatory markers, and as I eliminated processed meats from my diet over the following months, I watched these markers steadily decline. This was not coincidence, but rather clear evidence of how dietary choices directly impact our body's inflammatory state and cardiovascular health. The research supporting the connection between processed meat consumption and stroke risk is extensive and comes from some of the most prestigious medical institutions in the world. A comprehensive meta-analysis published in the American Journal of Epidemiology examined data from over 1 million participants and found that individuals who consumed the highest amounts of processed meat had a 50% higher risk of stroke compared to those who consumed the least. Another landmark study, the Nurses' Health Study, followed over 80,000 women for more than 25 years and found that those who ate processed meat daily had a significantly higher risk of stroke than those who rarely consumed these products. What made this study particularly compelling was its ability to control for other lifestyle factors, clearly demonstrating that processed meat consumption was an independent risk factor for stroke. The European Prospective Investigation into Cancer and Nutrition, which included over 400,000 participants from 10 European countries, provided additional confirmation of the processed meat and stroke connection. This massive study found that each additional 50 grams of processed meat consumed daily equivalent to about 2 slices of bacon or 1 hot dog was associated with a 19% increase in stroke risk. These studies are not isolated findings, but rather part of a consistent pattern of evidence that has emerged over the past 2 decades. The scientific consensus is clear that processed meat consumption significantly increases the risk of stroke. Yet this information has not reached the general public in a way that motivates meaningful dietary change. One of the most frustrating aspects of my experience as both a physician and a stroke survivor is witnessing how little emphasis is placed on nutrition in stroke prevention education. Patients are often told to take medications and exercise, which are certainly important, but the powerful impact of eliminating processed meats from the diet is rarely discussed with the urgency it deserves. The challenge with processed meats extends beyond their direct health effects to include their ubiquity in the American food supply and their integration into our cultural eating patterns. These foods are everywhere from gas stations to gourmet restaurants, and they have become so normalized in our diet that many people consume them multiple times per day without giving it a second thought. Consider the typical American breakfast of bacon and eggs, or the lunchtime sandwich with deli turkey and ham, or the weekend barbecue with hot dogs and sausages. These scenarios represent millions of daily food choices that are incrementally damaging cardiovascular health and increasing stroke risk across our population. The cumulative effect of these choices over years and decades is what ultimately leads to the cardiovascular events that devastate families and communities. What makes the processed meat problem even more insidious is the way these products are marketed to consumers. They are often positioned as convenient, protein-rich options for busy families, and the serious health risks are downplayed or ignored entirely. The food industry has invested billions of dollars in making these products appealing and accessible, while the medical community has been slow to communicate the urgency of avoiding them. The good news is that eliminating processed meats from your diet is one of the most impactful changes you can make for stroke prevention, and the benefits begin almost immediately. Within weeks of stopping processed meat consumption, inflammatory markers begin to decline. Blood pressure often improves, and the overall cardiovascular risk profile starts to shift in a positive direction. My own experience serves as a powerful example of this transformation. Within 3 months of eliminating all processed meats from my diet, my blood pressure had decreased significantly. My inflammatory markers had normalized, and I felt more energetic than I had in years. More importantly, my subsequent cardiac imaging showed no progression of atherosclerotic disease, and some measures actually suggested improvement. The key to successfully eliminating processed meats lies in understanding that this is not about deprivation, but rather about making informed choices that prioritize long-term health over short-term convenience. There are numerous delicious and satisfying alternatives that can provide protein and flavor without the cardiovascular risks. Fresh, unprocessed meats, such as grilled chicken, breast-baked fish, lean cuts of beef and turkey prepared without added nitrates or excessive sodium, are excellent alternatives that provide high-quality protein without the harmful additives found in processed varieties. Plant-based proteins, such as beans, lentils, nut seeds, and tofu, offer additional options that not only avoid the risks of processed meats, but actually provide protective nutrients for cardiovascular health. The Mediterranean diet, which has been extensively studied for its cardiovascular protective effects, provides an excellent framework for meal planning after eliminating processed meats. This eating pattern emphasizes fresh vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, nuts, olive oil, and moderate amounts of fresh fish and poultry, while avoiding processed and cured meats entirely. Research on the Mediterranean diet has consistently shown significant reductions in stroke risk among adherents, with some studies demonstrating risk reductions of 30 to 40% compared to standard Western dietary patterns. The PRODIMED study, a large randomized controlled trial conducted in Spain, found that participants following a Mediterranean diet supplemented with extra virgin olive oil or nuts had a 30% reduction in major cardiovascular events, including stroke. The anti-inflammatory properties of the Mediterranean diet directly counteract many of the harmful effects of processed meat consumption. The high content of omega-3 fatty acids from fish and nuts, antioxidants from colorful vegetables and fruits, and monounsaturated fats from olive oil all work together to reduce inflammation, improve endothelial function, and protect against atherosclerosis. One of the most important lessons I learned during my recovery was that successful dietary change requires not just knowledge, but also practical strategies for implementation. Simply knowing that processed meats are harmful is not enough if you do not have a concrete plan for replacing them with healthier alternatives. Meal planning becomes crucial when eliminating processed meats, as these products are often chosen for their convenience rather than their taste or nutritional value. By preparing fresh proteins in advance and having them readily available, you can maintain the convenience factor while dramatically improving the nutritional quality of your meals. Batch cooking is an excellent strategy that I now use regularly. On Sunday afternoons, I prepare several pounds of grilled chicken breast-baked fish fillets and hard-boiled eggs that can be used throughout the week in salads, sandwiches, and quick meals. This approach ensures that healthy protein options are always available when hunger strikes or time is limited. Seasoning and flavoring become particularly important when transitioning away from processed meats, as these products often derive their appeal from added salt, sugar, and artificial flavors. Learning to use herbs, spices, citrus, and other natural flavor enhancers can make fresh proteins just as satisfying and delicious as their processed counterparts. Garlic, ginger, turmeric, oregano, basil, rosemary, and thyme not only add incredible flavor to fresh meats and plant proteins, but also provide additional anti-inflammatory and cardiovascular protective compounds that further support stroke prevention efforts. The social and cultural aspects of eliminating processed meats cannot be ignored, as these foods are deeply embedded in many family traditions, social gatherings, and cultural celebrations. Addressing these challenges requires both preparation and flexibility, as well as a willingness to educate family and friends about your health priorities. I found that being transparent about my stroke experience and the dietary changes I needed to make for my health helped others understand and support my choices. Many of my family members and friends have actually adopted similar changes after learning about the connection between processed meats and cardiovascular disease. When attending social events or eating at restaurants, advance planning becomes essential. Reviewing menus ahead of time, calling restaurants to inquire about preparation methods, and sometimes bringing your own healthy options ensures that you can participate in social activities without compromising your health goals. The restaurant industry has become increasingly accommodating to dietary restrictions and health-conscious requests, and most establishments are willing to prepare proteins without processed additives or excessive sodium. If you simply ask. Grilled chicken, fish, or vegetarian options are available at virtually every restaurant and can be prepared in ways that align with stroke prevention goals. Travel presents additional challenges when avoiding processed meats, as airports, gas stations, and convenience stores are filled with these products while offering few healthy alternatives. Packing protein-rich snacks such as nut seeds, hard-boiled eggs, or plant-based protein bars ensures that healthy options are always available regardless of your location. The economic argument for eliminating processed meats is compelling and often overlooked in discussions about healthy eating. While processed meats may seem less expensive on a per-pound basis, the long-term healthcare costs associated with their consumption far exceed any short-term savings. The average cost of stroke treatment in the United States exceeds $40,000 for the initial hospitalization alone, and this does not include the ongoing costs of rehabilitation medications, potential complications, and lost productivity. When viewed from this perspective, investing in higher quality unprocessed proteins becomes not just a health decision, but a sound financial strategy. Moreover, many plant-based proteins such as beans, lentils, and whole grains are actually less expensive than processed meats while providing superior nutritional profiles and cardiovascular protection. A diet rich in these foods can significantly reduce grocery costs while improving health outcomes. The environmental benefits of reducing processed meat consumption add another layer of motivation for many people. The production of processed meats requires significantly more resources and generates more environmental impact than plant-based alternatives, making this dietary change beneficial for both personal and planetary health. Understanding the food label reading skills necessary to identify hidden processed meats and their derivatives is crucial for success in elimination efforts. Many products that do not appear to be processed meats actually contain meat extracts, flavorings, or other derivatives that carry similar health risks. Soup mixes, seasoning packets, snack foods, and even some vegetarian products may contain processed meat derivatives or the same harmful additives found in processed meats. Learning to read ingredient lists carefully and understanding terms such as sodium nitrite, sodium nitrate, monosodium glutamate, and various meat extracts helps ensure complete elimination. The concept of processed meat extends beyond the obvious products to include items such as meat. Jerky, which is often considered a healthy snack, but actually contains many of the same problematic ingredients as traditional processed meats. The high sodium content preservatives and processing methods used in jerky production create similar cardiovascular risks. Canned meats, including chicken, tuna, and salmon, require careful evaluation, as some varieties contain high levels of sodium and preservatives, while others are minimally processed and relatively healthy. Choosing varieties packed in water without added salt, or selecting brands that specifically avoid artificial preservatives, helps maintain the benefits of these convenient protein sources. The timing of processed meat elimination relative to stroke risk reduction is an important consideration that provides motivation for immediate action. While the full cardiovascular benefits of dietary changes may take months or years to fully manifest, some improvements begin within days or weeks of eliminating these harmful foods. Blood pressure improvements can often be observed within 2 to 4 weeks of significantly reducing sodium intake through processed meat elimination, and inflammatory markers may begin to decline within a similar time frame. These early improvements provide tangible evidence that dietary changes are having a positive impact on cardiovascular health. The psychological aspects of dietary change cannot be underestimated, particularly for stroke survivors who may be dealing with anxiety, depression, or fear about their future health. Eliminating processed meats represents taking control of modifiable risk factors and can provide a sense of empowerment and hope for the future. Setting small, achievable goals rather than attempting to eliminate all processed meats immediately can help ensure long-term success. Some people find it helpful to eliminate one category at a time, such as starting with breakfast meats, then moving to lunch meats, and finally addressing dinner and snack options. Others prefer to eliminate all processed meats at once, finding that a complete break makes it easier to establish new habits and avoid temptation. The key is finding an approach that feels sustainable and aligns with your personality and lifestyle preferences. Tracking progress through food journals, blood pressure monitoring, or regular laboratory tests can provide objective evidence of improvement and help maintain motivation during challenging periods. Seeing measurable improvements in health markers reinforces the importance of dietary changes and encourages continued adherence. The role of healthcare providers in supporting processed meat elimination varies widely, with some physicians providing extensive nutritional guidance, while others focus primarily on medications and procedures. Patients must often take initiative in seeking nutritional education and support for dietary changes. Registered dietitians who specialize in cardiovascular health can provide invaluable guidance for individuals seeking to eliminate processed meats while ensuring adequate nutrition. These professionals can help develop personalized meal plans, address specific concerns or challenges, and provide ongoing support throughout the transition process. Support groups for stroke survivors often provide practical advice and emotional support for dietary changes, as members share experiences, recipes, and strategies for maintaining healthy eating patterns. Connecting with others who understand the challenges and importance of stroke prevention can provide motivation and accountability. The global perspective on processed meat consumption and stroke risk reveals interesting cultural variations that provide additional insights into the relationship between diet and cardiovascular health. Populations with traditionally low processed meat consumption, such as those following traditional Mediterranean, Asian, or plant-based dietary patterns, consistently demonstrate lower rates of stroke and cardiovascular disease. The rapid adoption of Western dietary patterns, including increased processed meat consumption in developing countries, has been accompanied by rising rates of stroke and cardiovascular disease, providing real-world evidence of the connection between these foods and health outcomes. Japan provides a particularly interesting case study, as the country has experienced significant increases in stroke rates as traditional dietary patterns have given way to more westernized eating habits that include greater processed meat consumption. This population-level natural experiment supports the individual-level research findings about processed meat and stroke risk. The mechanisms underlying processed meat-induced cardiovascular damage continue to be elucidated through ongoing research, with new pathways and connections being discovered regularly. Recent studies have identified additional ways that these foods damage blood vessels and increase stroke risk beyond the traditional factors of sodium, saturated fat, and preservatives. Advanced glycation end products, or AGEs mentioned earlier, represent one area of emerging research that helps explain why processed meats are particularly harmful compared to fresh meats. The high-temperature processing methods used to create processed meats generate significantly higher levels of these damaging compounds than occur naturally in fresh foods. The gut microbiome connection to cardiovascular health has revealed another pathway through which processed meats may increase stroke risk. These foods appear to promote the growth of harmful bacteria while suppressing beneficial microorganisms, leading to increased inflammation and the production of compounds that damage blood vessels. Trimethylamine N-oxide, or TMAO, is one such compound that has received significant research attention. Processed meats and other animal products can be converted by certain gut bacteria into TMAO, which has been strongly linked to atherosclerosis and cardiovascular events, including stroke. The interaction between processed meat consumption and genetic factors represents another frontier in understanding individualized stroke risk. Some people may be genetically predisposed to greater harm from processed meat consumption, while others may be more resilient, though the overall population-level evidence clearly indicates that elimination benefits everyone. Pharmacogenomics research is beginning to identify genetic variants that affect how individuals metabolize and respond to various dietary components, including those found in processed meats. This emerging field may eventually allow for more personalized dietary recommendations based on individual genetic profiles. However, it is crucial to understand that genetic predisposition does not negate the importance of dietary choices. Even individuals with genetic variants that may provide some protection from processed meat-related harm still benefit from eliminating these foods, as the overall cardiovascular risk reduction is substantial regardless of genetic background. The intersection of processed meat elimination with other stroke prevention strategies creates synergistic effects that multiply the benefits of each individual intervention. Combining dietary changes with regular exercise, stress management, adequate sleep, and appropriate medical care provides comprehensive stroke prevention that is far more effective than any single approach alone. Exercise in particular works synergistically with dietary changes to improve cardiovascular health. Regular physical activity helps reduce inflammation, improve endothelial function, lower blood pressure, and maintain healthy weight, all of which complement the benefits of eliminating processed meats. The anti-inflammatory effects of regular exercise are particularly relevant as they help counteract any residual inflammatory effects from past processed meat consumption while supporting the healing and protection of blood vessels throughout the body. Stress management techniques such as meditation, yoga, deep breathing exercises, and regular relaxation practices provide additional cardiovascular protection that works alongside dietary changes. Chronic stress contributes to inflammation, elevated blood pressure, and other factors that increase stroke risk-making. Stress reduction, an important component of comprehensive prevention. Sleep quality and duration have profound effects on cardiovascular health and stroke risk, with both insufficient sleep and poor sleep quality contributing to increased inflammation, elevated blood pressure, and other risk factors. Prioritizing good sleep hygiene supports the cardiovascular benefits of processed meat elimination. The medication considerations for stroke survivors who eliminate processed meats from their diet are important to discuss with healthcare providers. Dietary changes can affect blood pressure, cholesterol levels, and other factors that may require medication adjustments over time. Blood pressure medications in particular may need to be adjusted, as dietary sodium reduction through processed meat elimination often leads to significant blood pressure improvements. Regular monitoring and communication with healthcare providers ensures that medications remain appropriately dosed as dietary changes take effect. Cholesterol-lowering medications may also require adjustment, as dietary changes affect lipid profiles, though most healthcare providers prefer to see sustained dietary improvements before reducing medication doses. The goal is always to achieve optimal cardiovascular risk reduction through the combination of lifestyle changes and appropriate medical therapy. The long-term sustainability of processed meat elimination requires ongoing education, motivation, and adaptation as circumstances change over time. What works in the immediate aftermath of a stroke may need to be modified as recovery progresses. Life situations change and new challenges arise. Continuing education about nutrition and cardiovascular health helps maintain motivation and provides new strategies for overcoming obstacles. The field of nutritional cardiology continues to evolve with new research, regularly providing additional insights into the connections between diet and cardiovascular health. Staying connected with healthcare providers, support groups, and educational resources ensures access to the latest information and support for maintaining healthy dietary patterns. Stroke prevention is a lifelong commitment that requires ongoing attention and adaptation. The ripple effects of eliminating processed meats extend far beyond individual health outcomes to impact families, communities, and society as a whole. When individuals make these changes, they often influence the food choices of family members, friends, and colleagues, creating positive health impacts that extend well beyond the original decision maker. Children and grandchildren who grow up in households where processed meats are not normalized develop different taste preferences and eating patterns that may protect them from cardiovascular disease throughout their lives. This intergenerational impact represents one of the most powerful long-term benefits of dietary change. Healthcare systems benefit when individuals reduce their cardiovascular risk through dietary changes, as this reduces the demand for expensive acute care services, long-term rehabilitation, and chronic disease management. The economic benefits of prevention far exceed the costs of treatment, making dietary change a sound investment for both individuals and society. The food industry responds to consumer demand, and as more people eliminate processed meats from their diets, manufacturers are incentivized to develop healthier alternatives and reduce the prominence of these products in the marketplace. This market-driven change can accelerate the availability of healthier options for everyone. Research and development efforts increasingly focus on creating plant-based alternatives to processed meats that provide similar convenience and flavor profiles without the associated health risks. These innovations make it easier for individuals to maintain healthy dietary patterns while enjoying familiar foods and flavors. The regulatory environment surrounding processed meats continues to evolve as scientific evidence accumulates, and public health advocates push for stronger warnings and restrictions. Some countries have already implemented policies to reduce processed meat consumption, and similar efforts may expand globally. Educational initiatives in schools, healthcare settings, and community organizations increasingly emphasize the importance of avoiding processed meats for cardiovascular health. These efforts help ensure that future generations have the knowledge necessary to make informed dietary choices. The personal transformation that occurs when eliminating processed meats extends beyond physical health to encompass a broader understanding of the connection between food choices and well-being. Many people report feeling more empowered, energetic, and optimistic about their health after making these changes. The sense of taking control over modifiable risk factors provides psychological benefits that are particularly important for stroke survivors who may feel vulnerable or anxious about their future health. Knowing that dietary choices can significantly impact stroke risk provides hope and motivation for continued healthy living. The improved energy levels and overall sense of well-being that often accompany processed meat elimination create positive feedback loops that reinforce healthy choices. Feeling better physically makes it easier to maintain motivation for continued dietary adherence and other healthy lifestyle practices. The social connections and relationships that develop around shared healthy eating goals provide additional support and motivation. Cooking groups, recipe sharing, restaurant exploration, and other food-related activities centered around healthy choices create community and accountability. The creativity and culinary exploration that emerges when eliminating processed meats often leads to a more diverse and interesting diet than existed previously. Learning to prepare and enjoy new foods, flavors, and cooking techniques can make healthy eating more enjoyable and sustainable. The environmental consciousness that often develops alongside dietary changes for health reasons creates additional motivation and aligns personal choices with broader values about sustainability and responsibility. Understanding the environmental impact of food choices adds another layer of meaning to dietary decisions. The legacy considerations for stroke survivors who eliminate processed meats include the example set for family members and the potential to prevent similar health problems in loved ones. Sharing knowledge and experiences can help others avoid the devastating experience of stroke through preventive dietary changes. The advocacy opportunities that emerge from personal experience with stroke and recovery can help raise awareness about the importance of processed meat elimination for cardiovascular health. Stroke survivors who share their stories and dietary changes can influence policy education and individual behavior change efforts. The research participation opportunities available to stroke survivors who have made significant dietary changes can contribute to the growing body of evidence about nutrition and stroke prevention. Participating in studies and sharing experiences with researchers helps advance understanding and improve care for future patients. In conclusion, the elimination of processed meats represents the single most important dietary change I made following my stroke, and the scientific evidence overwhelmingly supports this decision for anyone serious about stroke prevention. The mechanisms by which these foods damage cardiovascular health are clear, the research evidence is compelling, and the practical strategies for elimination are achievable for motivated individuals. The journey from stroke survivor to advocate for processed meat elimination has taught me that knowledge without action is meaningless, but knowledge combined with decisive action can be life-saving. Every person who reads these words has the opportunity to significantly reduce their stroke risk through this single dietary change, and the time to act is now not after a cardiovascular event has already occurred. The choice is ultimately yours, but I hope that my experience and the wealth of scientific evidence presented here will motivate you to take this crucial step toward protecting your brain, your health, and your future. Eliminate processed meats from your diet today and give yourself the best possible chance of avoiding the devastating experience of stroke that has touched my life and the lives of millions of Americans.